All right, what I have for you today actually is just a little bit of review for you from some of the things you should be able to remember from Algebra 1. But just in case we don't remember, a couple of things are going to come up here. First off, we're going to talk about how we can square a value that looks like this, how we can square a value that looks like this, because something that looks like that, when you go to square it, we're going to have to FOIL it out, right? And then the other thing is when you solve an equation like this with what we're going to create here, you're going to have to factor to solve that equation. So we're going to go over all those steps of factoring and review those also. Right? So we learned in 7.1 that when we have our right angle, Pythagorean theorem is going to have to work. Meaning c squared is going to have to equal a squared plus b squared. That's how we do Pythagorean theorem. My c is the side that is opposite my 90 degrees. So in this case, it is 2 square roots of 5. A is x plus 1, or you could have done it as x plus 3, but we'll do it as x plus 1. Right? And b is my x plus 3. Now, when we do 2 square roots of 5 squared, if you're going to do it on the calculator, you have to really be careful. Make sure you square everything. Right? 2 square roots of 5 squared means we have 2 square roots of 5 times another 2 square roots of 5. So to do this, we have 2 times 2, which is 4, and then the square root of 5 times the square root of 5, which is the square root of 25. Now, we know the square root of 25. The square root of 25 is 5. So we have 4 times 5, which is actually 20. Like I said, you can type that on the calculator. Just make sure you're getting 20 so that you know you're typing it in correctly. Now, when I go to do the other side, this is where we have to be careful. X plus 1 squared does not mean that I square the x and I square the 1. Right? If you try to do that, you're going to end up completely with wrong answers. To square something means you multiply it by itself. So it means I do x plus 1 times another x plus 1. Let's see if I can slide this stuff over real quick. Give me a little bit more room. To do something like this, that process was known as FOILing. FOILing is just an acronym to tell me we are going to do the first parts, then the outer pieces, then the inner pieces, then the last pieces. Essentially, FOILing, it is like a big old distributive property. I need to take my x times x, and x times 1. So that would be x squared plus 1x. That is the F and the O, the first and the outers. The I and the L, the inners and the last, completes that acronym. First, outer, inner, last. To do the other part, we take our 1, and we do it times the x and times the 1. So we get another 1x and another 1. We still have the x plus 3 squared. Oops. So that means we have x plus 3 times another x plus 3. FOIL means first, outers, inners, and I got to move over for my last here. And then finally, my last. 3 times 3 gives me a plus 9. So I have 20 equals, all I'm going to do is clean this up. I'm going to combine my like terms. X x squared plus x squared is 2x squared. X plus 3x plus 3x is plus 8x. 1 and 9 is plus 10. Right? So there's the equation we ended up with. The last thing I need to review with you is how you actually factor something that looks like this. The first step in factoring, when you end up with an x squared and an x to the first power in the same problem, the only way we're going to be able to solve it is to start going down this road of factoring. The first step of factoring is our equation must be set equal to 0. So I'm going to bring my 20 over. I got 0 equals 2x squared plus 8x minus 10. So first step, we set equal to 0. My second step is we're going to look to see if we have a GCF to pull out. Here my common factor is 2. So I pull a 2 out, which means I divide everything here by 2. So we end up with x squared plus 4x minus 5. Our third step is actually we're going to get into the process of truly factoring. That process of factoring is going to be known as AC grouping. The reason we call it that is in this equation, our equation is typically set up as ax squared plus bx. Let me redo that. It is typically done as ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. A is the number in front of our x squared. So A is this number that's right here. B is this number in front of my x. C is the number that's by itself. So in this case, A is 1, B is 4, C is 5. Negative 5, sorry. It is called AC grouping because we are going to multiply A and C together. A times C is 1 times negative 5 is negative 5. We want factors of negative 5. Well, the only numbers that multiply to negative 5 are a positive 1 and a negative 5, and a negative 1 and a positive 5. We want the set that will add to the B value. Our B value was a positive 4. So the set that is adding to my B value is the negative 1 and positive 5. The reason we wanted to add to the B value is we are going to change our B value into those two pieces. So I have 0 equals, I still have the 2. I still have the x squared. It is my 4x that we are going to change. We're going to change our 4x into those two values we just decided on. So it's minus 1x plus 5x, and then my minus 5 comes down. So that's the AC portion of it. The other part is the grouping part. Right? We are going to group our terms together. We are going to group the first two together and the second two together. Right? So I have 0 equals, I'll have this 2. Now, when I look at this x squared minus 1x, the first part there, we're going to pull out the GCF of it. The GCF is x. And it will leave me with x minus 1. Look at your second group, the 5x minus 5. We're going to pull out a GCF there also. My GCF there is a positive 5. We're writing down plus 5 times, what are we left with? We're going to divide by 5 and we get x minus 1. Notice those things I'm left with. They match up. They should match up every single time. The reason they should match up every single time is they are going to be one of our factors. They're going to be the first factor we write down. X minus 1. My other factor will be the GCFs that we pulled out there. The x and the positive 5. To factor means we are going to change our original equation, which looks something like this, into a multiplication problem. We are multiplying all these things together. The reason we do that, when you multiply things together and you're going to get 0 as an answer, the only way that is possible is if one of those things is 0. So you have the option either 2 equals 0, which it never can, x minus 1 equals 0, which means when I add 1 to each side, one of my solutions says x equals 1. Or we have x plus 5 equals 0. Whoops, not x plus 5 equals 5. Or x plus 5 equals 0, where we subtract 5 from each side and we get x to equal negative 5. Now, technically, we came out with two solutions here. X equals 1 and x equals negative 5. However, remember, we started this problem looking at a triangle. If I plug in negative 5, negative 5 plus 1 tells me this side is negative 4 units long. I cannot have a side that is negative 4 units long. So even though it was a solution to my equation, it does not work in my picture. So my only answer here is a positive 1. Right? I know that's a lot to digest in one problem. We're going to do 2 more of them, and then we are going to get some time to practice on foiling and factoring so we can answer some questions also. Right? In our next one here, right, we start the same way. We plug into Pythagorean theorem. If we do that, c squared equals a squared plus b squared. So it is 2x plus 3 squared equals x squared plus 2x minus 3 squared. To square it out means we are going to FOIL. So I have 2x plus 3 times another 2x plus 3. We have our x squared, and I have a 2x minus 3 times another 2x minus 3. FOIL out the left-hand side. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times 3 is a plus 6x. 3 times 2x is plus 6x. And then 3 times 3 is a plus 9. We still have our x squared here. Now I have to FOIL again. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times negative 3 is a minus 6x. Negative 3 times 2x is a negative 6x. Negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. So there's where our equation stands. First step, let's just clean it up. 4x squared, combine my terms here. I get a plus 12x plus 9 equals, let's combine our terms here. I got x squared plus 4x squared. That would be 5x squared. We can combine these two terms. I got negative 6x and negative 6x is minus 12x. And I got my plus 9. If when you FOIL these out, we have x squareds and x's in the same problem, the first thing we need to do is set our equation equal to 0, which means I need to take everything to one side. Typically, people like to keep their x squareds positive. It makes life a lot easier. So I have more x squareds on the right-hand side, so I'm going to bring everything from my left-hand side over. That way on the left-hand side, I have 0. These go away, these go away, these go away. 5x squared minus 4x squared is x squared. Negative 12x minus 12x is negative 24x. Positive 9 and negative 9 is 0, so they go away also. So there's the equation I'm left with. So the first step we set equal to 0. The second step is we look for that GCF. Well, in this case, we have a GCF of x. And we are left with x minus 24. Notice how we do not have an x squared anymore. We have factored this problem. We don't have to go through the whole AC grouping thing here. All that's left to do then, we are saying these two things, when you multiply them together, must equal 0. The only way for that to happen is one of them is 0. Either x equals 0 or x minus 24 equals 0. Well, x equals 0 is already solved. X minus 24, I'd have to add 24 to both sides. We get x to equal 24. There's our two solutions to our equation. Now we just have to check the picture. If we had 0, 2 times 0 is 0, minus 3, this side would be negative 3, and this side would have been 0. I can't have a side of a triangle that is 0. I can't have a side that's negative 3. So 0 doesn't work. My only solution here is 24. Which brings us to our last problem in the notes today. One more to look at here. If you want to pause the video and try it on your own, try it and then come back and watch how to go through it. We're going to start it the same way. C squared equals a squared plus b squared. In this case, c is 5x. So I'm going to have 5x squared equals, we'll do x plus 2 for a. Oops. We'll do 5x minus 1 for b. 5x squared means 5x times 5x. X plus 2 squared means x plus 2 times another x plus 2. 5x minus 1 squared means 5x minus 1 times 5x minus 1. 5x times 5x. We have 5 times 5. We have x times x. So 5x times 5x is 25x squared. X plus 2 times x plus 2. Here we need to FOIL. X times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 2 is 4. I'm going to shift these to the left a little bit, just to give myself a little bit more room. To do my 5x times 5x, which is 25x squared. 5x times negative 1, which is minus 5x. Negative 1 times 5x is minus another 5x. And negative 1 times negative 1 is plus 1. Just cleaning up this right-hand side, we'll combine what we can combine. We have 25x squared on the left. We have x squared plus 25x squared is 26. X squared on the right. We have 2x plus 2x minus 5x minus 5x. So that becomes negative 6x. Then we have our positive 4 and our positive 1. That's plus 5. Step 1 in factoring. Set it equal to 0. So we have to subtract 25x squared from each side. We have 0 equals x squared minus 6x plus 5. Unfortunately, here we do have exponents to the second power and to the first power. So I am going to have to factor this. Step 1, or the next part, we look to see, is there a GCF for x squared, negative 6x, and a positive 5? There is not. So we know what A is, we know what B is, we know what C is. A is 1. B is negative 6. C is a positive 5. So when we do A times C, 1 times 5 is 5. The numbers that multiply to 5 are 1 and 5, negative 1 and negative 5. I want the set that will add to my B value. My B value here is negative 6. So the set we want is negative 1 and negative 5. Because we're going to take our negative 6x and we're going to break it apart into those two pieces. It's called AC grouping because ultimately I'm going to group two sets of things together. I'm going to group the first two and the second two. Well, I can't do that if I have 3 terms. So I need to make this middle term, I'm going to break it up into 2 different ones. The x squared will still be there. The plus 5 will still be there. I'm taking this negative 6x and I am breaking it apart into the 2 pieces that we highlighted here. So it's a negative 1x and a negative 5x. That's the AC portion. Now we group them. Group the first 2, group the second 2. When we look at the first 2, our GCF is x. It leaves us with an x minus 1. When I look at the second 2, when I'm looking, a lot of people say our GCF is 5. If I take a positive 5 out, I would have had a negative x plus 1. We don't want to have negative variables. So instead of taking out a positive 5, we are going to take out a negative 5 instead. When I do that, I end up with a positive x minus 1. And notice now these terms that what I'm left with match up. That is what we want to have happen. Because that x minus 1, that is our first factor. Our other factor is the GCS we pulled out, the x minus 5. So there's our second one. To solve then, we set these factors equal to 0. Either x minus 1 equals 0 or x minus 5 equals 0. So when we solve here, we add 1 to each side and we get x equals 5. Oh, sorry, not x equals 5. When we add 1, we get x equals 1. When we add 5 here, that's where we get our x equals 5. Right? Before, when we checked our answers, one of them wouldn't work. However, here, when we go through and plug in, if I plug in 1, we get 3, we get 4, we get 5. That works. When I plug in 5, we get 7, we get 24, and we get 25. those lengths work also. I don't end up with any negative values. So here there's actually two solutions to our problem. Right? So look back over these. If you have questions, please let me know.